What?
Hi.
What in the world
Hey.
were you playing?
That was like one of these things. I wonder if I can still do that. I might as well find out in front of a lot of people.
Was that? Yeah, but Jen was playing a guitar of some sort.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
But no,
I
you
was
too.
playing flamenco.
Well, that makes
Right?
sense.
Duh.
Anyway,
Hi.
Welcome everybody.
Welcome
I thought I'd
show.
try and wear headphones tonight so that I didn't feel like I had to yell all night. Because when I run everything in the room, I always find myself yelling. So I thought maybe I could speak more like a broadcaster tonight because I have a new professional broadcasting microphone.
woo!
This is the Electro Voice RE20. I've been waiting for one of these for years. I'm so excited about it. And this is the one I saw. I sent Jen a picture of Larry King using one, which is exciting.
Oh yeah, all the cats use those.
All the cats. This is the broadcasting standard for. It's the broadcasting standard.
Do your Larry King impression for us, please.
Boise, Idaho. Is the caller there? Boise, Idaho. I was so funny that you should say that. We're not going to do any of that tonight because I didn't have time to work out the technical bugs, but I was thinking maybe it would be fun to take some calls.
Yes,
but I didn't have time to get that together. How come I didn't have time to get that together, Jen?
Okay, well, it's my fault.
By the way, real quick,
honestly.
Welcome to Outside the Inn. We are the Travis Larson Band. This is our weekly Saturday night Q&A/chat discussion where we get together and hang out with everybody and talk about road stories and whatnot. So anyway, Jen, how come I didn't have time to get the technological stuff together for tonight's show?
Well, because you were trying to help me with my technological stuff for this show. So you might notice I am in a different location this evening. And
this is part of my underground bunker, right?
Yes, this is a different area in the underground bunker. And for various reasons, I was telling Dale, I'll tell you this story when we're online. Well, so when we first started this thing, 10, 13 weeks ago, right?
This is number 13. This is number 13.
Right. 10, 13.
Which seems appropriate.
Back then, yeah. I don't think any of us realized what we were kind of in for with regards to
one of us was excited about it, but
well, so I basically just plopped a big thing in the middle of an area and set up some stuff, and it's remained there all this time. And I was like, you know what? This is probably going to stay here for a while. I should probably make it something that every time I don't have to lug a bunch of stuff up and set up and so I've moved operations, and my show and tell for this week was the bitchin' microphone I was supposed to be using tonight.
Ooh.
That's the RE1000.
Electro Voice RE1000.
Yep. It's a trickle down.
It would technically be like this, but the way it's working out, it's going to be like this for me eventually. But we were having technical issues. And so that's why Travis doesn't have the phone call situation ready. And here I am using this microphone because we didn't sort it out in time. So next time you will see me with a proper broadcasting microphone.
In Jen's defense, I will say that generally she's the IT person in the band who figures stuff out. But she's also the person who's willing to just deal with the most obsolete gear on the periphery, like computer and everything like that.
Here, take my crap that I'm not going to use.
Yeah, I don't want it to seem like you're the person who doesn't know what you're doing.
There's a trickle down effect. So I got the EV RE20. So Jen got the one that I was using. Yeah. And but she needs it takes phantom power. So this could be, I don't know if this would be interesting for anybody, Dale, but we're going to discuss this after the show if we don't discuss it now. Do you have
subject everybody else to it?
We might as well. Jen needs a phantom power boost, like we were discussing the other day, because she needs to get that phantom power microphone working with her laptop. So you just the other day you were telling me that you got one, and so maybe at some point before next Saturday,
something like this. What does that say? What's that? Look at that. Yeah!
Phantom power.
So do you have a use for that?
Superhero-y. Superhero-y.
I don't have an immediate use for it. No, I got it for down the road, and it's one of those things where you know how we've all thought about gear, and then all of a sudden there's none on the planet, or it won't ship. So like when it was in stock, I just grabbed one because I think a few months from now I will have use for this. But it's just sitting here in its box.
Gotcha.
So yes, I have a phantom power source.
Hey Dale. Since I have my new, all this technical stuff we can work out in front of everybody. But since I have my new headphones and I can hear everybody well, could you back off just a hair?
Sure.
Or is that possible?
Do you mean vocally or like personality wise?
Can you just turn it down a few notches, dude?
Tell me did that succeed, or did you notice that?
No, I think that helps.
Okay. How's this? Yeah. How's this? Was it just because I yelled when I...
Yeah, but that's great because then you can yell and it's not gonna. Jen, say something.
Hello, everybody.
Sounds fantastic.
Okay.
By the way, that was not scripted. Trav was genuinely asking me because I had been talking about this, and I happened to have one right there because I'm such a dork.
That's perfect. I do have actually here. I don't know where it is right now in the clutter, but a phantom power situation. But for whatever reason, I wasn't able to hear Travis through it. So
here's what it is.
Something with my old system and
Jen is on Windows 7. That's and then I swear we'll move on for the people watching. But Jen's on Windows 7. I got her a USB audio interface. So when she hooked up the USB audio interface, the microphone worked, but then she couldn't get audio back. And so she's going to go back into the regular situation she's using now, but with the new microphone, if she can get the new microphone into the analog situation she has happening with this microphone. But she needs
analog rules.
Right. So anyway, that's what's going on.
This light, we'll have to sort out the lighting situation in here too, because I feel like I'm Hello?
Hello? Let me hijack everything for a moment and say that, I did my first live performance on the air last Wednesday in a month, and I appreciate everybody showing up and hanging out with me on Wednesday. So we talk about Facebook notes, right?
Yep.
Everybody that's watching pretty much now probably knows what Facebook notes are. But if you're new to the webcast here and you're not familiar with Facebook notes, we've coined a term for wrong notes because the way Facebook copyright works, if you play audio through Facebook that matches an album audio, they have a waveform scanner that basically analyzes it and tells you whether or not you're playing a copyrighted song through your live feed. So, and if you are, then they give you trouble. Being that I'm playing a bunch of copyrighted material, even though it's my own, on the first couple performances, I had issues with that. And I would get a notice and it would say, you have copyrighted material on this performance. We're going to pull it down. So
to sum up, the thanks you get for playing a song spotlessly with zero mistakes is that it doesn't get broadcast.
Right. Well, they pull it out later. It'll get broadcast live, but they won't let you save it and leave the webcast up. So the reason that the webcast is up with absolutely no issues, and by the way, I didn't even get an email or a message this time about any kind of copyright infringement.
Oh. So that's rough. Nobody thought that was perfect, did they?
No. So Wednesday, I played. I thought I played. I thought I hid the Facebook notes reasonably well. Like there was a couple that were obvious. Generally speaking, they were just not exactly like the record. But yeah. So we've coined the term Facebook notes for anything that would cause you to actually leave something up on Facebook because it wasn't like the record. So the worse I play, the more we can watch that show over and over again. That's the gist of the
right.
situation. So
Perfect.
so that one's still
so
up.
ironically,
If you guys...
the less you want to watch it.
Right.
It's like an official version of how things work out just in life, where the one horrible gig you play where you made cringy mistakes, you look for the last weeks of shows and nothing will be up, but that one show there'll be cell phone video of the crappy version. Just
right.
This is like an official version of that.
Right,
hey, I see
right.
Gail Baum is watching. This is an inside joke, but
nice. Is that an inside joke?
Not really.
It's not really so inside so much, right?
Right. Not anymore. So Jean Marie Phillips says you were awesome at your performance, by the way.
Oh, thank you. So always trying to dial a few things. I went on, and I also will say that I waited a month because I felt like maybe I was going to start wearing out my welcome, and people are kind of, the lockdown, quote unquote, is starting to open up. People have less things to do, but turns out everything is starting to lock down again. So I think I'll keep doing them for a while.
Which is why I decided to put in place a more proper, situation, because it's going to be a while.
That's why you moved to the underground bunker instead of the cabin that's up above ground.
Exactly, because it just seemed more appropriate for what's coming. I guess.
Keep the zombies out. So, anyway, so yes, I'm going to try and stay in shape enough to where I can do one of those, maybe, once a month or something like that for quite a while. It gives me, some incentive to keep those songs under my fingers. It's not so much that I'm not playing, it's just that I'm not playing those songs. And, so the muscle memory of those songs goes away. Arthur Sampson says, when possibly will there be a new complete CD? Well, next year. There's going to be one next year. Are we willing to commit to that, Jen?
Yep.
Yeah, next year.
Yes.
We're not in this. What about me?
Yeah,
So like Dale gets dragged along kicking and screaming anyway. You don't ask Dale for deadlines.
We know a lot of drummers.
Yikes.
You know what's great though, Dale?
What's great?
Did you ever used to watch the Tom Green show when he had his friend Phil, who would just hang out on the in the side of the set, and he always had a coffee cup?
No, right? I wasn't up on it. Sorry.
You're kind of like Phil.
All right.
That's for the Canadians.
If it's an insult, I don't know any better. So cool. I'll be Phil.
No, there's no insult at all. In fact, Phil in real life, Phil is a super genius, and he's a computer expert. He works for various secretive government agencies, but he used to be just your standard bonehead on the Tom Green show. But he was always a smart guy, just didn't let the world know it, So anyway,
that's why I had to move, because Phil's staying up in the loft in the bunker. I had to give it up.
Phil.
Sam Kovar says, "I like your shirt, Dale. This is the illustrious shirt we were talking about last time. The one that the Avalon recording shirt that Kip always gets a comment on the road and." Yeah, he's just not gonna get around to reprinting it.
Yeah, we're gonna keep talking about it though, and then one of these days, we're gonna get him on the show. He actually the other day he said that he thought he might be able to work up the nerve to do it. So
nice.
The thing about Kip, our sound guy, for people that don't know, is Kip doesn't like being in front of the camera ever.
Yeah,
but he's the most entertaining one in the band.
Yep.
There's no doubt about it.
Remember the last tour, like the whole last gig, we knew that, Brian Bella would do sort of a thank you to everybody and say a few words. And then Kip, we were saying, oh yeah, you do great sound. He's going to point you out to the crowd. And he's like, no, he wouldn't do that. When and then he's just cringing when we all talk about what a great sound man he is.
Right.
Ralph Gray.
I was just looking through here. I say you guys probably have said hi to a lot of people. I see Glenn.
Those
Scott.
Holy splash symbols full of holes on the, I think on the Mercy Springs version we did recently. I got those from Ralph.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow.
He got those to me at what's the place? Is it Will's? Is that where we play with LaRue's band a lot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Will's Pub,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
In Orlando.
Yep.
Yeah, and we played that other place though. The time that we played with Ralph.
Bigger place.
Yeah, which I won't remember, but it was that was a nice place.
Mm-hmm.
Scott says, "Love me some cowbell."
Yeah.
Vincent says, "Good evening. Received Jen's book yesterday. Yay!"
Oh,
Is it?
yay.
Oh, cool.
Thank you.
Is it too early for a Who's the Man?
No, not if you got one.
No, you got one, Dale?
Well, I saw Boyd mention Dale. Who's the man? Marco Miniman, or Danny Carey? Tool. And so.
Why are you calling me a tool?
Who are you calling a tool?
So I think that's a very good one. Like, they're both insanely great drummers, and it's a rare case where it's a really good Who's the Man, but it's really easy for me. Like, the things that Marco Miniman does speaks to me a lot more than Tool, and I don't really have a reason for that. I respect how great Tool is as a band. There's to me, and I haven't listened super deep, so sorry if I'm saying something dumb to any real Tool fans, but there's something trance-like about that band. I don't know if stony is the right word, but it's really something you can just dig into and trip on, even though the playing is so great. And I don't tend to listen to things as much that way. So I'm going to go ahead and say Marco Miniman, but that was a good Who's the Man. There's a beat from Eulogy, though. I think it's from that song that every drummer tried to learn, and I learned it well enough to teach it to people. And then it's like a language, and if you don't play it, you can't do it. It's that, like, yeah, I can't do it. Anyway. Nope. I gave up already. You already know what I was trying to do. Hey,
have you ever seen the lead singer of Tool when he's not in his toolness?
I've heard him talk really nerdy about wine on the Rogan podcast.
Okay. Have you ever seen him? Like, this dude is a very, like, he's exactly the opposite of what you would think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's like super refined kind of dude that wears like a tie and speaks very well. And it's kind of funny when you see, because then he's got all kinds of crazy stuff going on stage. It's almost like heavy metal Peter Gabriel or something,
Yeah. And then, on stage, I know this is a probably everybody's seen this, but there's that funny thing where the fan gets on stage, he gets too close to the singer, and he ends up like putting his arm around it, or something. Anyway, he ends up putting the guy in like a martial arts move and just holding the guy while he finishes the song. So the guy's just pinned and humiliated for like 3 minutes while he finishes doing the song.
Right. Sam Kovar says, even when things get back to normal and we start touring again, we'll have to keep doing the Q&A stuff because they're too used to this now, and we've got them spoiled.
Oh, right.
It's funny. Dale was talking about being done now. He's like, hey, are we going to keep doing this? No.
Well, we did have a conversation where I was like, if people start going back to doing a lot of things on the weekend, will we still do it on Saturday? But part of that very conversation is a lot of places are already beginning to sort of close back up.
Right.
So
we got no worries.
Yeah.
Or we have a bunch of worries. I'm not sure.
Right.
Depends on how you view it.
We don't have scheduling worries for this.
If you want to hang out with all your friends on a Saturday night and then go eat animal cookies and watch reruns of Starsky and Hutch on the Crackle app, then everything is fine.
Right.
All is right with the world. So I got to tell you, I'm doing all right, Anyway, so what was I just going to say? I lost my train of thought. I know what I was going to say. You're talking about Marco Miniman, and so tomorrow is the year anniversary of the very first day of the last tour.
Oh, wow.
Like the last tour that we started with those guys. So that started June 28th. Yep. Wow. So what's funny is I spent the whole day today. I've been walking by the Death Star for weeks, and it's growing more and more spider webs and dirt, and it's starting to get so, it's getting caked on bird crap and all that kind of stuff. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, I gotta get into this. So today I spent the whole day, basically trying to clean up the Death Star and detail it and everything, just so that, I know it's just going to sit there, but at least you keep the paint protected and everything. And then I thought to myself, this is probably exactly what I was doing a year ago today. And doggone it, if it wasn't a year ago today, I was doing exactly that. I was getting it all waxed up. And then tomorrow we would have driven to Southern California. Yep. So how about that? Isn't that something?
Yep. You still have that drum of Marco's?
I do. Yeah. I still have Marco Miniman's gong drum because we decided after the first gig that we couldn't fit it or my keyboard in the van for the tour.
Yep.
So I didn't play double tap and he didn't play the gong drum on his drum solo.
And Jen got a whole bunch of super fun tour manager stress, making executive decisions about what can go in which vehicles and what has to stay the very first night.
Well, here's what's crazy about those kind of things, right? So we start that tour and those first nights are in California for a reason, and they're in the same venue for a reason. That's so we can all figure out what our problems are going to be, right?
Right. Uh-huh.
So, and then we're driving to San Francisco, I believe, for the next. So we lived halfway between the first gig and the next gigs, so we had a place to stop. So we go down there, we figure out, okay, what's not going to work. And then after the second night at Alva's, we drove back here after the gig. So we're going to get in to this house about 3 a.m. Then we're going to get up the next morning and start driving again. And so we get in and Dale and I and Kip are tearing everything apart, figuring out, what we got to lose, but it's buried in the van, so, and then we're throwing, we drove the minivan back too, because we had two vehicles down in LA and then we had to fit everything into one. So when we came back from the tour 3 months later, the minivan was still sitting there, much like I described the van today, covered in bird crap and leaves and dirt and spider webs, but filled with a huge pile of just all the unorganized, complete disaster of all the stuff that we were ripping out of the other van and throwing in there, extra, with drum parts and cables we couldn't take. And it's just a pile of mess in the back of that van that had been sitting there in the driveway for 3 months from the 2 hours that we spent that one night just hauling butt trying to get everything organized.
That's such a weird sense memory when you get done with the whole tour and everything, you survived, it went well, and you get home and you can relax. And then you just see this reminder of how much stress there was right on the first night. And you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. So, interesting, just side note too, it's actually the third gig, but the second venue that we played, which was right after that, the next day, I believe, I might have it wrong, but I think we played San Francisco. Maybe anyway.
Did we play Sacramento? I thought maybe
we might have played
Carlos.
Sacramento first. That's why we had to move so fast, because Sacramento is 6 hours from here.
Yeah, right.
So we drove 3 hours after a gig that we got out of at midnight. Mm-hmm. And then we drove 6 hours the next day to get there for a 4 o'clock sound check. Right. So anyway, but when we got to San Francisco, we played Slim's, and Slim's just closed. So that was my side note of,
Oh yeah.
That was my Debbie Downer.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who owned Slim's. If I could remember it, then I would tell a story on behalf of Scoots Linden. Does anybody know who owns the Club Slim's? He's a famous 70s musician. I mean, he's been around for a long time, but he was kind of the biggest he was in the 70s. I'll leave that up to people watching. And if you guys want to figure that out and let me know, I'll tell a story about Scoots Linden at Slim's. Let's see. I'm just looking through the comments here.
Boyd says Boss Skaggs. Is that the deal?
Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah, that sounds right.
That rings a bell, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody's saying that.
Okay. Well, so I'm going to tell a story that Scoots Linden told, because we lost Scoots a couple of weeks ago. So this will be in honor of Scoots, who was Steve Morse and the Dixie Dregs, guitar and various other things, tech for years and years and years, like decades, since the early days. His brother, Twigs Linden, is he actually Jen showed me this, but he's listed in a book somewhere as greatest roadie of all time, or is that his Wikipedia page?
Yeah, I think it's the Wikipedia. Correct.
Yeah, he's like legendary. And so his brother Scoots also has been out, with as part of the Dregs family for years and years. So he told this story where they were playing at Slim's. This is the Steve Morse band playing at Slim's. So it's Steve, Dave LaRue, and Van Romain. And Slim's, if you've been there, it's a pretty narrow stage. There's walls on either side of it. There's not a lot of side area to the stage. One of the sides is a wall, and the stage left is a flight of stairs that goes downstairs. So there's no place to really stand off the side of the stage without being on stage. So Scoots had to make the workstation area for all the guitars and the basses on a corner front of the stage, and he had to rope it off, right? So it was kind of in the audience, but they had like little caution tape rope thing going around it. And so he's got his workstation down there with all the guitars lined up and, tuners and tools and stuff. And Dave had a problem with his bass, and he ran over and traded out basses, and Scoots is working on one of his basses, trying to fix something. And some guy walks up with his drink and sets it on Scoots's table, like his workstation table. And he leans over to the guy and he goes, "Hey, this is a work area. Please, don't be there." And so the guy takes his drink, walks away, whatever. Somebody else does that, like a second person comes up and they set their drink there. Anyone that's ever been in a live music venue knows this kind of stuff just goes on and on and on. It's like when there's a place like that where somebody's going to stand and they're not supposed to and set a drink, it's just going to keep happening. Like, it's just one of those things. And so Scoots leans over and says, hey, this is this is a work area. Can you not set your drink on my tool area? I don't want it to spill on any guitar parts or electronics or anything. So that person takes their drink away and walks away. Then a guy comes up and comes under the rope and sets his drink there and stands there and starts watching the show from behind the rope, where he doesn't have to deal with the crowds and stuff. And Scoots goes ballistic on him. Ballistic. And anyone that knew Scoots, he was a pretty small little guy, but he was a spitfire. He was a Southern boy, and he was just like screaming at this guy, "Get the F out of my area, blah, blah, blah." He's looking at the security guys. They're like throwing up their hands like, I don't know. And he's like, why isn't the security guy helping, And so he screams at this guy. This guy leaves. Then later on, when the show's over, he walks by a security guy, I think it was, or somebody, and they said, "So you kicked Boz out earlier, huh?"
Oh,
That's great.
punchline.
That's great.
So
Really?
that's a true story. Yep.
Oopsie.
I didn't even see that coming. That's good. Do you remember you remember at Daryl's house? I forgot the name of the guy who managed that place and was the sound guy, but there would be right in front of the sound guy who needs to see what's happening. It'd say no standing, and everybody, of course, stands right up against it. And he just had a yardstick or something, and he would just smack people in this.
Right.
Remember that? He just had a little, and he was not being a jerk. He was just like pop, and he'd be like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, it wasn't even that they were really. They weren't even really in a place that was impeding. He just wanted line of sight.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It was just
get out of my way.
I just got to be able to see right here.
Right. If
So he
somebody's
just poke people,
yeah,
with a broomstick.
Can we do that from stage? Can I get a stick and just do that? Pink.
Right.
No. Pink.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. I need that.
You'd rather do that than play bass. Jen, if this is a job, then I'll take this job and somebody else can play bass.
Well, there were aspects of the tour managing, but I didn't use a stick.
Right.
I just used dirty books and all that.
Here's
a stick next time.
There's a question for Jen from Scott Baker. It's kind of typoed heavily, but I think he's saying, Jen, what is your go-to effect that you use most playing live or in the studio?
Oh, um, I would say that reverb is something that I always have on to some degree, even if it's just a tiny little bit. So yeah, I think that that's an ambient effect that adds, that little bit of sparkly stuff that you just can't get with the
like
dry.
some air.
Yeah.
Like it's a really, really short one. No one would even know it's there unless you were hearing like a direct feed. You know what I mean?
Yes. It's like just a little bit of depth, so it feels like you're in a room. Second to that, I would say compression, although I don't tend to use a lot of it. I do use a little bit of it. So if I had to just have, one or two effects, those would probably be the two. Reverb and compress. Right now, if you were really a master over there, Travis, you'd be adding all kinds of reverb to my voice right now.
Well, if we had the digital mic link, that probably I could pull something like that off.
Oh, but you're saying because I'm doing this analog thing, you can't.
Yeah, but that's actually BS. I'm just saying that. But here is something that I was going to be able to do that I didn't have time to get together. I think this is pretty cool though. I was gonna hook this up. I didn't have time to put another feed together, but I want to make this one some kind of a logo or something because I think this is pretty good.
Oh, nice.
Oh, brother.
Everybody likes that.
Those were two different reactions.
I showed that to Dale and I showed it to my brother and they thought it was awesome.
It is awesome.
Where did that come from?
I made it.
Okay.
I'm a genius, eh?
I support you.
Get your X-Acto knife out and some colored paper. You remember back in the day, Travis? Okay, this brings up. I don't want to. If you have something important to say, go ahead.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Do you remember back in the day? This was 100 years ago when we were first starting to make records. We had to literally use X-Acto knives and color copiers or copy machines to make covers.
Well, demos.
Remember that?
Yeah, we did it with demos.
Right?
Yeah, when we were making cassette tapes is what it was.
Yeah, I mean, we would literally just like cut out, little pictures or the posters. Oh my gosh, the posters was like it was like a ransom note. It was like cut out letters, like live, and it was all janky and like total ransom note stuff. And back then we were actually the Insomniacs. Remember? We'll have to bring that up maybe.
Well, no, we actually
before Dale, we were the Insomniacs.
But we had Travis Larson demos before Dale too. When we had JR drumming for us, we were called Travis Larson. But last week when I was looking for pictures from the Rush stuff, I was telling you that I was looking through those old photo albums, where you actually turn a page. There's photography in an album. And I saw a bunch of pictures of us like in my own.
They're called prints, Travis. They're called photographic prints.
Oh, prints, not prints like that Prince.
No.
So
that's not even Prince, is it?
No, that's definitely not Prince. That was not good.
That was Michael Jackson.
That was. But isn't one of Michael Jackson's kids named Prince?
No, Blanket.
Yeah, but there's another one. There's Blanket and there's Prince and there's
somebody will confirm or correct us shortly.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was looking through those photos and I saw photos of us in my old bedroom, when I lived with my parents as kids. And so we used to sit on the floor of that bedroom, and Jen had confiscated like a flat glass tray, it was like a dessert tray or something.
It was a cookie tray. Yeah,
from Christmas, right?
It was a Christmas one, yeah.
Yeah, but the back side of it, so the top side of it looked like little Christmas trees or something, but the back side of it was just a piece of glass. So we used to cut. We got X-Acto knives, and we had a metal ruler, and we used to cut those things out on that. We didn't even have a paper cutter, and we would.
Nope.
And then she was able to make print stickers. Like you ordered some chrome stickers somehow through a catalog.
Yeah, some sort of print catalog. And then I used to type. Remember, there was a typewriter on the desk there, and I'd type all of the letters to the record companies about, whatever.
So,
I don't know.
So Jen would she would type up a bunch of letters, and we would send demos to the record company. And then the record company phone was right next to my head. And like back then, it was a second line in my parents' house. So this is like early 20s, late teens, right out of high school kind of thing. And so then, much like now, I would sleep late occasionally. And sometimes that phone would ring at like 8 a.m. And I remember one time it woke me up out of a dead sleep, and it was the president of some record company. It was like 8 a.m. And I was like Dale and I, we're like we know, like you wake us up out of a dead sleep, like on the road, and we're just like, like it takes a while to warm up, right?
Yeah, you don't know where you are, who you are.
Yeah, and so their phone rings, and I pick it up, and I'm like, hello, and this guy is like, hello, my name is so and so from such and such records. Yeah, can I speak to Travis Larson? And I'm completely asleep, and I talked to this guy, and it was like the worst 5 minutes of my life. I was just like totally and then he tells me, which record company. He's like, I'd like to hear more music. You send me another demo ASAP. And I'm like, which record company is this? And I'm trying to find a pen. Like making the guy feel about as unimportant and unspecial as you could possibly.
And then he's like, feel. Yeah, this is a badass. He didn't care who I was. Even that's funny. I guess. Go ahead.
Or he was like, I'm not going to deal with this kid. What's going on?
That's funny to think of that line. Like, I guess I knew this, but I mean, just being a landline that just went to your room in your parents' house. That's so great.
Yeah, it's that's been the record company number for like 30 years.
Yep, right.
But now it doesn't go to my old bedroom.
It doesn't go through wires
right. No, it does go through wires, but it just doesn't go there.
Okay.
It goes to the secret lair.
Gotcha.
Let's see, what is
I feel like this shot is like a lineup.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
You like this one better?
Oh, I don't know. I got to work on the lighting in here. It's awful. Look at it. I can hardly see. I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, what the heck? I can't hardly.
Scott Baker
awful,
says.
Travis.
Scott Baker asks, "Is any chance that you could get Dave LaRue to be a guest?"
Yes, but do we?
Yes. There is a chance that we could get Dave to be a guest. No, actually, we have a list of people that, as things progress, we're going to keep doing guests occasionally here and there. And Dave is on the list. Really?
Jen bailed.
Yep. Sorry. Until I figure the lighting out in here, this is helpful.
That's great.
You don't want me to have seared retinas, do you?
Scott says, Jen said the F word.
Oops. No, I didn't. I stopped myself. Didn't I?
Oh, fun. So, I was thinking back to, since a year ago, exactly, we were just getting ready to go on this tour. And then I was thinking about the first big Aristocrats tour that we did of North America. And it was the same exact run, so last year it was the same run as the time that we did it in 2015. And in 2015, the very first day we were driving to San Francisco, and this is, I'm just gonna, talk about how incredibly nerdy we are. But and when I say we, I mean me and Devin are one of our crew guys at the time. But the building that is Cyberdyne building in Terminator 2 is located in Silicon Valley, California, which is south of San Francisco, on the way to the gig. It's literally like 2 blocks off of Highway 101. So, of course, I researched that. Now, it took, it's not like I haven't lived in California my entire life, and it's not like I haven't driven by there 400 times. But for some reason, the first day of the Aristocrats tour, it just seemed like the thing to do. Let's go check out the Cyberdyne building. I think it was just perfect timing where we knew we would have an extra hour or so if we got up there past the traffic in a reasonable amount of time. So we got off there and we pulled off, and we found the Cyberdyne building and took a bunch of geeky pictures. But these are the things.
And then you got in some argument about whether it was a T1000 or a T100 or something like that. And one of you had a card, like a bubblegum, like a baseball card, but it was about I can't remember. Like
I have Terminator cards that I think Devin got me.
If his picture's not on a bubblegum card.
Yeah.
Right. How could you say he's so great if his picture's not on a bubblegum card?
Yeah. On a bubblegum card.
Vincent says we lost Chris Squire 5 years ago today. How about that?
Oh.
So
wow,
that's a bummer.
5 years, really? My God.
You know what's interesting about that is I saw him right before. So I saw him at the NAMM show that would have been right before he passed away. That was the last time I saw him, and so
Where
it was
did you
like
see him?
I saw him in the Hilton lobby playing.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Like the current version of Yes was playing in the Hilton lobby, or at least parts of it, as some kind of an all-star jam thing. But he was down there and they were playing. I think that's right. Maybe I don't think
if I was there, I don't recall that.
You were not there.
Probably taken notice. Oh, okay.
If you say you saw somebody at NAMM, nobody could correct you.
Right.
You might have. There's no way to disprove it.
Scott says
I would have assumed it was on the floor at a booth.
Scott says this is better than a Merv Griffin show. How about that? Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing about the Merv. Here's the thing about the Merv Griffin show. The very first time I ever saw performing, on camera at least, I ever saw Chick Corea and Herbie Hancock was on the Merv Griffin show.
Oh yeah, nice. We talked about that with
Keneally. Live on television. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, I don't know about you guys, but that was the first Who's the Man that made me I thought about that Who's the Man for days.
Yeah.
The Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea. And there was a second, and you guys can stop me if this is not worthy of a discussion, but there was a whole separate thing that I wasn't able to put into words in the moment. And that is Chick Corea. Okay. I think a lot of us felt like Herbie Hancock. I can't remember if you did, Jen, but I said I loved Herbie Hancock's playing with Miles, and I think Mike felt that way. And anyway, so, but I was also, it was weird because I was thinking Chick, his music has had such an influence on me. And later what I figured out that I couldn't put into words back then was there's a different kind of being an important person in music. And the best example, I think, is Miles Davis, where even if Miles, this is maybe a ridiculous statement, but even if Miles didn't play, he would have been important just for his vision of who to bring together. Like he would get Tony Williams in the same room with Coltrane and Herbie Hancock's. Like he just time after time would assemble the right people to execute his vision. And people do talk about that, but it's a genius that I don't know how you.
Well, here's an interesting thing about that. Are you guys hip to the fact that the Gear Fest has been going on the last 2 days? Yesterday and today.
Vaguely. Yeah.
So I've been chiming into that occasionally. They're live streaming it all this year, so everybody's doing it like this.
Yeah.
They had Alan Parsons on yesterday from his home studio.
That's right. We talked about
Yeah. So a perfect example of a guy that did exactly that, right? Like,
yeah.
What is the Alan Parsons project? It's him putting a bunch of guys together.
Yeah.
Right. That are just awesome.
Right. And so to me, if there is a number 2 in that discussion, it's Chick Corea. And to me, the Electric Band had a huge impact. He got Dave Weckl and was it John Patitucci and he put together that band. It was just insane. And then the acoustic band and Return to Forever before that. Like these bands weren't just great because he went, hey, you're good, we should all be good together. Like he knew who to assemble. And anyway, I've taken too long to say it, but basically that thing where you have the vision of who to put together and then create difference making music.
I'll say it before anybody else does, but it could be argued that I have that vision, right?
Yeah.
You guys are here. You guys are here.
Yeah. Yes, you are correct.
I got Jennifer Young, then I got Dale Moon.
There you go.
What more do you need?
Exactly.
What more do you need?
So
you got me.
Most underrated, greatest rhythm section of all time in all of music, right?
Yeah.
And I can say that. I can say that because I'm not the rhythm section guy. So it's not an arrogant thing to say. I'm just saying that the rhythm section of the Travis Larson Band is the greatest rhythm section of all time. I think we can get that out there, right? It's like, how Michael Jackson used to say he was the king of pop, and then pretty soon he's the king of pop.
Well,
you guys, greatest rhythm section of all time.
To actually
for the Travis Larson Band.
I know you're goofing around, but to your point, I will say that
that we are.
Yes, we are that great. I remember you guys when you were looking for a drummer. There was a lot of good fucking drummers in this town.
You just said the F word, Dale.
Yeah, sorry. And so, and I do remember you guys thinking about elements besides just who's, and in fact, I had an injury, so I wasn't playing at my best, but you were considering other factors than who's most on point. You were thinking like those things, like who can you hang with, who seems like they have this similar,
Well, honestly, let's just say that Dale was 100% that, because you couldn't even play the drums when you joined this band.
Right, yeah.
Like it was 100% based on reference and hang.
Yeah, right.
Kip, for those that don't know the story, Kip turned us on to Dale. Kip is our sound guy, for the last 3 decades almost. And so we were looking for basically a next level drummer that we could do this with the way we're doing it now. And Kip's like, this is your guy. He's your guy. He's a guy that is 100% dug in. He does nothing but play drums, lives in a warehouse. Right. And he's the guy that'll do it, but he can't play the drums right now. Like he's torn his roto cuff playing too many drums.
Details.
Yeah, you're right. But yeah, that's true. That's funny.
The beauty of this band is that you had a repetitive motion injury, which in this band, you don't have much repetitive motion.
Right. Yeah. Back then it was just playing like over and over reggae and hip hop beats. Yep.
I have the Who's the Man.
Okay.
It sort of references Werner's Who's the Man, but I had this one before. Since you brought up Merv Griffin. My Who's the Man is Johnny Carson, David Letterman.
Okay, well, let me just say that I got a Who's the Man a minute ago that was Merv Griffin or Johnny Carson.
That was from Werner, and yes.
So let's start with.
You could do either one of those, but I had a Who's the Man from like months ago or 13 weeks ago, whatever. That was the other one.
Well, I will say.
Respond as you will.
First of all, you have to be the right age at the right time for any of these guys. I will just say, because there's a sweet spot in all those guys' career where they were not trying to maintain. They were trying to get their foot in the door and make a mark. And
Cutting
when
edge.
that was, yes, and when that was going on, you know, Johnny Carson's on that level, he's a little before our time. I did grow up with Johnny Carson. I watched Johnny Carson every night when I was a kid. I went to the third to last Johnny Carson show when Stevie Wonder was on. I still have it on VHS I literally got home from a 3-hour drive home from LA and saw the show before it aired, because they don't air it till so much later. But so on a cutting edge level, I guess on a groundbreaking level, Johnny is the man. But as far as the guy that just had me rolling on the floor and just like, and if you asked anybody my age, Tom Green, Jimmy Kimmel, guys like that, they would say David Letterman, because when David Letterman started, he was really, really edgy. Like he would go out on the street, much like Tom Green used to on the cable access thing in Canada. And he would just start talking to people, like people that you shouldn't be talking to. You know what I mean? and as a guy now that tours and spends his time in alleyways in cities around North America, I can really, really relate to how nutty that was. Like he would go out and talk to some guy that seemed like he was about to like maybe lose his mind or something. And it was so engaging and so edgy and so hilarious for a teenager when you're watching this guy who's maybe about to get his ass kicked because he's just in the Bronx, walking up to people with a microphone saying, "What's in your bag?" Just like,
so
"What's in my bag?"
Griffin before your time enough to compare to Johnny?
No, they were at the same time, although Merv Griffin quit a lot earlier than Johnny. But
so if you had to do who's the man between Merv and Johnny, who's that?
Absolutely Johnny. But that's because Johnny was more a comedian and well-rounded, and Merv Griffin was very much a talk show host. And that's why earlier, anyone that used to watch Merv Griffin knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like,
okay.
That's what Merv Griffin used to do.
Give me the creeps.
Yeah. That's what
So
you remember when Merv Griffin was
Johnny.
Yeah, remember when Merv Griffin was injecting people with Windex in that Steve Martin movie, The Man with Two Brains?
Oh yeah, that's the greatest movie ever.
Sorry, go ahead, Jen.
One of them.
On that level, he's pretty cool. But go ahead, Jen.
Well, so between Johnny and Dave.
Well, for me, it's Dave, but it's not. That's for me personally, because it's the era that I was coming up in. Dave was such a new thing. He was so entertaining and engaging. Right. And then, and then all those guys eventually kind of run out of steam. It's like when you watch
Sorry, Stephanie Hilstein. Merv is not the man.
Ooh.
All right, Dale, what's your Johnny Dave?
Here's my take. It reminds me very much of when you asked me about Buddy Rich and Billy Cobham. And in a lot of ways, Billy Cobham kind of in most ways is as badass, but then I kind of fell back on this thing of there was a lot of badass players in Billy Cobham's day, and in Buddy Rich's day there was no discussion. He was the Michael Jordan of his day. Like there was Buddy Rich, and so like just to be the man that completely in your time, then that's it. So it reminds me of that discussion. For me, I'm like Trav, it is Letterman, but it strikes me, and maybe I'm just unaware of other guys who would be vying for this time thing in Carson's time, but Carson has that. He was the man in his time, period. There was no conversation.
Yeah, I suppose it's not a very good comparison.
I think it is good. I think it's a really good one, but you have you can tap dance around it because, like Trav said, they're in slightly different eras, and so you can go, well, it's not quite head to head. But
right,
yeah,
but yeah, at the time, I mean, anyone that used to watch the early Dave, when Chris, what's his name was on there?
Chris Elliott.
Chris Elliott.
The
And
guy
he
under the
would do
stairs.
Guy Under the Seats, stuff like that, where he would just crawl out of a hole in the middle of the show and be dressed as a different character every night. Like that kind of stuff was hilarious. He would be like, one night he would open up and there would be like smoke billowing out of this like trap door up in the under the seats of the audience, right?
Yep.
And he would stick his head out and he'd be like dressed as like a longshoreman or something, you know, and you'd hear like a foghorn, you know, and then he would inevitably every night he would say, "Hey Dave, how's it going?" Dave would be like, "Hi Chris, what are you doing?" And he'd be like, I'm dressed as a longshoreman tonight, you know, or something. But then in the end, he would always get pissed off at him, and then he would act like he was going to kill him.
Yeah,
it was hilarious.
Yeah,
like he would be like, "You won't know when it's going to happen, Dave, or what's going to happen, but someday." As he closed the door, he'd be like, "Someday I'm going to get you," you know, and they'd be like, Paul would be playing creepy music. I thought that stuff was hilarious, you know? So anyway.
I'm remiss for not pointing out that Johnny Carson was a good drummer. A couple people mentioned that.
That reminds me too.
And had Buddy Rich on all the time.
As from a music perspective, Dave had the absolute best musical guests and best presentation of those guests of any show ever because it was raw, not because it was overly produced. But because those guests would have to sit in with the house band and they would do a mishmash jam kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he would get guys on there that nobody else would get. You wouldn't get Eddie Van Halen on the Tonight Show, but you'd get him on David Letterman.
That's
you know,
true.
I saw Keith Emerson jam with the Letterman band. I mean, nobody else was doing that. Those guys that played arenas or that were just avant-garde guys that wouldn't do any other shows because the shows weren't cool would go on the Letterman show and jam with those guys because those guys were the best band on TV. And that was a huge influence on me musically as well. You know, it's funny. We talk about a good friend of ours now who was our first artist relations at Electro Voice, who, by the way, just got me the new RE20 professional broadcasting microphone.
I saw Stormer's on earlier. So. But I know who you're talking about.
Stormer, but our friend Jim, who was our first A&R guy there, those guys used to rehearse at his house. He grew up with those guys, the original guys, you know, Sid McGuinness and what's his name? Steve Jordan, yeah. And Will E, you know, like those guys were a band. They were basically a band that Paul found and then turned it into his band, but they were already a band out in New York, you know? So, those guys were awesome. I've got some of my favorite versions of stuff ever. When Keith Emerson played America on the Letterman show, that's like one of my favorite things to watch. It was great, you know? So anyway, that was like a really cool thing about Letterman. So, you know,
that was really cool. Just seeing a band. I mean, the Severinsen band was so great too, but it was its thing and you couldn't intermingle with it. But just to see people fitting themselves into such a great band in Letterman's show, it was really fun.
Yeah. I saw the live, like when it happened, I think you could probably find it on YouTube now, but like there was a lot of crazy stuff on the Tonight Show, but one of the most raw moments was when they had Chuck Berry on there, you know, and he just took over the whole show. For anyone that ever saw that, like Johnny was so stoked to have him on there. And so he came on and he did his one song and he went over and he sat down. And then Johnny goes, could we get you to do some more? Like he was playing with the band, so it's not like they'd worked up other tunes, but it's Chuck Berry, right?
Yeah.
So anybody, you know, if you don't know Chuck Berry, you've not learned how to play your instrument, you know.
On the flip side, allegedly, there's no pleasing him either. So it's not going to go well, even if you do know his music.
So that was like, as a kid, that was super, super cool. And that, you know, that kind of like, that was schooling into the original world of rock and roll for me as a aspiring guitar player. Cause, you know, in the early 80s, I hadn't been exposed to all that stuff so much because the 50s are before my time. But then he was on there and then they did, he was promoting Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll, I think, which was the movie, you know, documentary about him and Keith Richards putting that band together.
Yep.
But with Steve Jordan, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he was on the Tonight Show, and he just completely they just kicked everyone else off the show that night. And I forget who they were, but I remember Johnny going, say it, such and such actress. He goes, so we've asked her, she's welcome to come back anytime, and she told us what we could do with our offer. He literally said that on the air.
Wow.
Right.
So they just kept having him play more and more spots, huh?
Yeah. So he goes, let's come back from commercial and we'll have Chuck play some more songs. So Chuck walks over, turns his amp on. It's not even hot anymore, like on the air. And he's got to wait for the juice to come on the amp, and it's an old tube Fender. Yeah. And then he's got to talk about, what they're going to do. He's like,
wow.
Kia, whatever, here are the changes. And then they played tunes. So, it's Chuck Berry. You can kind of just blow.
Right.
It's just 1, 2, 3 and go.
And this doesn't relate, obviously, but just to keep the conversation of guys sitting in, and the opposite scenario. Oops, we lost Jen. Oh, well.
Phew.
Now we can talk. No. So,
right.
But the flip side of you should just know it is once or twice, like you can find old YouTube of Buddy Rich sitting in with Doc Severance's band, and literally like it's a new chart that he hasn't been released on his album yet, and he's passing out charts, right?
Right.
So you got all the best players ever just sweating bullets reading, right? And Buddy Rich is going to glare at you. It's right. That's tension filled, just because you know how like stressful that must be. They're like, you got this great player with a non-trivial, super complicated chart. You got a trumpet player. You got to get up there and play a solo.
It's great when Buddy Rich would go off on people on the bus.
Yeah. That's the funniest thing. Like, to people who don't.
You
know
are
that.
not my kind of guy. That's my favorite.
That's my favorite, because you've listened to 25 minutes of just the worst, most violent sounding swearing at people and just vulgarity. And then he runs out of things. He runs out of vulgarities and just goes, "You are not my kind of guy."
Right. The other one, and they used this on, they used a bunch of them on Seinfeld, but the one where he goes, I'm going to take you out on the street and show you what it's like.
Yeah. You want to go outside? I will show you what it's like.
So what does that mean?
I read a good article by a bass player who talked about touring with Buddy Rich, and he was like, people told me it was a little weird, but we always got along great, and he was complimentary. Hey, you're back, cool. And then there was some show that he could tell he wasn't happy with his playing, like he could tell he was getting the stink eye from Buddy, and then he gets on the bus, and Buddy has him sit down next to him, and he's like, "You and I are not friends anymore. You shouldn't sit here." It just kind of went downhill, and he was out of the band in a few weeks. And he's like, "I knew it was coming. It was great. I liked the time in the band, and I was prepared."
Right.
So funny.
Yeah, that goes back to the whole thing of, people always ask, how we're still a band, and it's much like you always hear Rush talking, where you have to figure out what part of a relationship works and what part doesn't, and then nurture the part that does and just get along.
Yeah.
Like you either get along or you don't,
Yeah.
So where'd you go, Jen?
I had to go pee.
Oh, cool.
Oh, did you do that on purpose?
Yeah, we just thought you lost your
Did I do
connection.
what on purpose?
Well, your camera went out. I thought you just lost your connection. Oh.
No. So she is the one who knows what she's doing.
Well, it gave us like this big kind of weird round smiley face. It was like some sort of a digital approximation to you.
The default.
I don't mean to really be wearing sunglasses like on this thing. It's just that, this light is blinding me and freaking me out a little bit. I'm sorry. Right. I'm not trying to be like cool or anything. I just don't want to start.
You're not trying to be cool because you don't have to try.
No, never trying to be cool.
Yeah. Right. All right.
Joke.
A joke?
Okay, yeah, joke.
What did Batman say to Robin before they got in the car?
What?
Robin, get in the car.
Wow.
All right. So I got my Who's the Man for this week.
Okay.
Well, we can throw this out to people. This is for the guitar players out there. I don't know if you guys will be hip enough to both these guys to have an opinion, but
Well,
but I hope you will. Robert Cray or Robert Randolph?
Oh.
Who's the man?
Say.
I apologize. I'm not hip enough. You first, Jen.
Robert Randolph.
Jen, that's it. Jen's paying attention. She knows the deal.
I'm embarrassed to say I'm not hip. What?
Robert Randolph is a badass. You should know who Robert Randolph is, Dale.
Well, yeah, I already felt embarrassed when I said that. Now you're making me feel more embarrassed.
Right. If you were a real musician,
Jesus.
If you were a real man.
Oh my God. Travis, I'm going to smack you with a yardstick.
See, the people skills would be you go, oh yeah, you know what's his name from? You're just forgetting, but you're just like,
yeah, you know the guy, with the thing in the stuff.
Robert Randolph plays lap steel, but he runs it through like a couple of Marshalls, and it's like this slamming like boogie band, and he's just like a force to be reckoned with. It's like a Tasmanian devil of groove.
Nice.
So you would actually dig it. I saw him on Austin City Limits maybe 10, 12 years ago, could be more, I don't know. And that was one of those guys I saw, and it was the first guy since I had seen Eric Johnson on there that I had stood back and go, let me sit down for a minute and watch this and go, what is this all about? So
nice. One of our listeners
Chris says though that Robert Randolph and his band were assholes. So
is that right?
That may play a little bit of part of who's the man that we are not privy to.
His band opened for them, and his whole band was total a-holes.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Allegedly.
Gotcha. Allegedly.
I have another weird who's the man.
Well, now I'm going to feel bad again.
Springsteen, Mellencamp.
Springsteen.
I'm going to be alone here, but I'm going to say Mellencamp.
You know why I'm going to say Springsteen?
Because everybody loves him, and
the same reasons
known to be
the same reasons Chris just said he doesn't like.
Yeah, I know.
Robert Randolph.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. I somehow
like Bud's like neither.
We've talked about this, but that doesn't usually characterize how much I like somebody's art, and maybe you're just inoculated.
You like the drummer
in Mellencamp.
Yeah, that's what you're. That's what you like.
No, I don't latch on to Springsteen that much, and I know that's preposterous to people, and I'm just going to own it. I don't. And then I also do feel like it feels a little like you're talking to Dead fans when you're talking to Springsteen fans, and I'm just going to make us all hated. But I feel like when when you talk to Dead fans, you will eventually realize you're talking about the music and they're talking about the hang, right? A lot of the time. And I feel like when I'm talking to Springsteen fans, I will be talking about the music and they'll be talking about how much love and admiration they have for the man. And it's not that I disagree with them. I never feel like we're not talking about the same thing. So if you're asking me whose music I've enjoyed more, it's Mellencamp by a hair. If you're asking me who I think maybe has like shown more light onto people's lives or something like that, then I'll give you Springsteen. Sorry, I should have kept my mouth shut for the last 90 seconds.
I'm a little behind.
All right, I got another one. Just to change the subject, this is going to be a really, really big one.
Okay.
Ready for this?
Yeah.
Black Flag, Black Sabbath.
Well, I mean, in our world, we all know who's the man, and that's based on the fact that we're a band just like that. So it's Flag. Nobody knows who Flag is, but who's the man? Like Sabbath never had to live, under the conditions that Black Flag did and still do it.
It's all up for interpretation of what your
So you're basing it on,
like Dale just said, if you're talking about who's the man based on musical or like what he has done to, whatever the world, it's all up for interpretation.
That's true.
Yeah, you're talking about
Thank
the DIY ethic versus the big machine. And that's true. Wow.
Like those guys wouldn't have been a band for 5 minutes if they had to live the life of Black Flag or us, right?
No, but who would have been?
Well, there's guys. Right?
Yeah, but we would have lost a lot of our heroes if they really were. If you're going to have to walk the Ramones Black Flag path, a lot of people will self-select themselves out. We will lose some art in that process.
Right.
But no, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. But yeah, man, this is a humiliating episode for me. I didn't latch on to Sabbath. I didn't latch on to Sabbath the way I should have. Like, and there's no reason for it. I get it. They're awesome. And I mean, it's just one of those things. I was late to Zeppelin, right? Like there was like, I came around to that later than I should have. And then when I did, I was like, what's wrong with me? How did I miss this for 10 years of my playing life? And Sabbath is one of those that I didn't quite latch. I mean, I've heard it and I love it and I get it. And I think it impacted so many people. And I think probably I might fall Sabbath when it comes to just music and impact and heaviness and all this stuff. But I get what you're saying, Trav.
Let me just go back. Tommy says Springsteen by Miles. Mary says Springsteen. Well, she says Springsteen. Yep, he's difficult. But I think she's answering 2 questions though. Chuck says Springsteen all day. And then Hunter says Kenny Aronoff, which is what I was saying. Yes. That's why you dig that band, because you're attached to Kenny, not to John Cougar Mellencamp, right?
I'm not that attached to Kenny. I mean, he's a noteworthy drummer who created a career in the midst of being in a famous band, so that's really cool. But he's not like a big old influence of mine or something.
Right. We had a question going back a little bit. This is one of those questions. Nicholas says, would TLB be interested to tour internationally, for example, with the Aristocrats? Well, more internationally than we already do, I'm assuming you're asking, Nicholas, because we did tour Mexico and Canada with the Aristocrats and America. But as far as touring overseas, absolutely, we'd be interested in that. And we were this close to trying to make it happen. But the truth of it, going back to our Black Flag roots, is that there just wasn't enough budget to get everybody over to Europe and make all that happen. It just wasn't feasible. So when we go to Europe, as soon as all this is over, which that's the other thing, is we had discussions to go to Europe this year for the first time. So another disappointment about 2020. But it's all about finding people that you trust to be promoters or to work with you to get you over to places like that when you haven't done it, because you don't want to go over there and not know what you're doing and have poor turnouts and go bankrupt. But as far as the Aristocrats specifically thing, we would absolutely do that if the budgets were there to make it happen. And certainly we've, had those discussions. It just wasn't feasible to get 9 people over there versus, 4 or whatever it was.
Wayne says a TLB bake sale. We should totally do that to raise funds for our international tour next year.
Got to be gluten-free, light on the dairy. It's going to be a lot of
corn-free, grain-free, gluten-free, everything free.
Hey,
we should.
Can I tell? I just saw somebody saying Bill Ward, Geezer Butler, one of the greatest rhythm sections. I agree. Can I tell a goofy story? When I first came to San Luis Obispo, it was to go to college, go to engineering school, but I was still, I was still going to find. Even though I was trying not to do gigs and trying not to play music and just focus, of course, I ended up starting to sub for people, and I couldn't help myself. And I swear this would have been like in early 91 or something. Geezer Butler, does this make sense? Was playing in Los Osos. He was touring around. And I want to say,
well, was he doing clinics?
I think he was doing had a trio with Carmen Apiece.
Playing at Sweet Springs.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that played at Sweet Springs.
Yeah. I hope I'm not messing this story up, but I remember, so I think it was Geezer was playing at Sweet Springs, and it was New Year's Eve. Okay. So I've been serious for like one quarter, and then I didn't bring my drums. I was trying to study, and then Christmas break, I go get my drums, I bring them back, and the next thing you know, I'm doing a New Year's gig, and I'm doing piano jazz in Morro Bay, just playing brushes, and there's a vocalist, and it's just a bunch of 21-year-olds getting paid on New Year's Eve. And we also we're wearing tuxes, but we can afford tuxes. It's just a bunch of college students throwing, well, I got this cummerbund and a tie from my prom or something, like a bunch of pants. I
have a pair of black pants.
Yeah. We just threw them all onto a bed and started trying stuff on. And we all looked classy and stuff. And we were playing this, ballroom music, and it worked out. And then right afterward, I was like, the Sabbath guy is playing like 8 miles away. I'm new to town. I'm trying to find my way to Sweet Springs. And so we get done at midnight, and so I'm just like, it's not like you have GPS. I'm just intuiting my way to this. Back then, it was really a biker bar, when that meant something.
It was a very small town.
Yeah. And it was, had a reputation for a tough place. And I show up, and it's 12:30, right? People have been listening to heavy, loud music in a dive, nothing but Live to Ride, Ride to Live.
And Hunter is working the door.
And Denim, yes.
I know exactly. Just to describe, the guy that worked the door for this looked like a 6'5" Frank Zappa with a big Fu Manchu mustache.
Yeah.
And a ponytail down to his butt.
And I show up as a clean-shaven, skinny kid with short hair, and I took off my bow tie, and I'm trying to muscle toward the front of just guys who have been there for 4 hours, and there's just, you can't even see through the smoke, and everybody's drunk by now. And I'm trying to push forward, and I'm just getting the worst looks, and I'm like, I want to see Carmen Apiece. I've heard about him my whole life, but I live so far north, nothing ever comes to me. So, and I'm just pushing myself. And right about the time I start to get to the front where I can see, I'm getting looks like I'm going to get hurt, right? It's going to go bad. People are looking at me, and they're, when people glare at you and then they go back, people are just holding their stare, and people are starting to turn around, and there's space opening up around me a little bit. And I just right when I could see what was going on, I just went, I have to leave or I'm going to get my ass kicked. This is going really bad. So anyway, to my credit, I tried to go see.
And you backed off?
I watched for a little bit, but I was going to get hurt right away. Like, people, it was not just that people were continuing to look at me. There was a little bit of space opening up around me, and I was just alone before it was just like, I'm muscling through people. And
they were making the fighting space.
Yeah. I put my tail between my legs, and I backed out, and I kind of hung out outside and listened for a while, but yeah, it wasn't like, wah, wah, they don't like me. It was like, no, of course, you're going to get hurt here. Right. But it was also what I was doing. It was like, it's 12:30. Everybody staked out their position 3 hours earlier, and I come pushing through like a guy. Yeah, wait, I got to see this. Anyway.
You should have just had a sign that said, I'm a drummer. I need to see this. I'm a drummer. Let me through.
So Gino says in the feed, friggin' Hunter had some history with that guy.
Oh, great.
Gino,
That's
Gino, you've had history with
Gino with a G. Gino doesn't live here anymore, so we don't have to worry about him. Hey, Dale.
Yeah.
Tell the story. First of all, a lot of people wrote Rollins in our Black Flag discussion. A lot of people, I think that outweighed. Like, some people said Sabbath, not even close. Many people said Rollins, though.
I saw an early Sabbath and then a late surge of Rollins.
I forgot, but Jen and I wanted you to tell us the story about the other night.
Oh yeah. Okay. So this is a completely random story. Another story from Dale.
OMG. It has nothing to do with anything, but I want to hear it anyway.
It has nothing to do with anything, but this is so I spent my week, just like today I washed and waxed the van and stuff. And Jen, I don't know what you've been doing.
I got ready for guests who didn't come, but I'm getting ready for other guests who are going to come.
Yeah, because
So
they're quarantining.
Yep. Being responsible.
But Dale had a good story from the other night.
So my truck was misfiring and needed to be taken in before I could register it. So for a couple of nights, everybody's bogged down with their businesses and my truck couldn't get taken care of soon enough. So I was riding my bike back and forth and from teaching. And so the other night I was riding, I was almost back and I pull around a gas station parking lot and I see like a plastic case in the road. It looked like a long, cheap plastic case that you would tuck behind the seat of a pickup or something, like a tool case. And I'm a big dork, so I'm like, ooh, case, I could probably put some stands in there. But it's right in the road. Like somebody's gonna circle back for it any minute.
And I'm on my bike, so I'm gonna ride away.
Yeah, I'm just riding a bike.
Dale
and then
definitely has a case fetish. You need to point this out. You are a case.
Since Jen and Trav have known me, I'll show up randomly like, hey, I hit the thrift store and I got this golf bag case. It's made by SKB.
I think it's gonna hold this sampler just right.
Yeah. So anyway, I see this and I'm like, whatever. And I almost ride by it. And then I get closer and I'm like, that's a nice case. And so I stop and I grab it. And then it becomes clear it's a gun case. And I'm like, well, that's a cool case. And it fell out of somebody's truck or something. And I pick it up and it's heavy, like heavy. And I'm like, okay, it's a gun case and it's heavy. And I'm looking around and there's a couple people milling around in the gas station.
You're like in front of like a 7-Eleven type, like mini mart. Kind of thing,
it's well lit, but the mini mart's not open. It's late and it's COVID, so I don't know what the deal was. But then I look around and try to see what's happening, and the people walking around are not looking for anything. They're just on their phone trying. It's a college area.
They're looking for something, but
these are attempted booty calls. So this guy's just walking around and they're not looking at anything else. And I'm over on the side and I pick it up and I finally just go, well, I'm going to find out what I'm dealing with here. I don't want to take anything that belongs to somebody, and I guess the move is, you go on Craigslist, say I found this, but I don't want to be in possession. So if I open up and there's a shotgun in here and shells. So now it feels like, well, I don't even want to leave it here. There's everything you need to make trouble. And it's not like a night. Okay, I don't know anything about guns, so I'll sound preposterous. But it's not like a nice.
It's a Magnum PI.
It's like a tactical metal flat black shotgun. This has a stock about this long on it. It's a multiple cartridge. Like I'm like, wow, okay. And I close it back up.
You opened this up like in the parking lot of the 7-Eleven-ish area?
I basically walked around behind some bushes and I kind of lurkingly opened it up, realized what it was, closed it back up, and I'm trying to figure out my move now. I don't want to be in possession of something that's not, I don't know what the laws are. I don't know anything about this. It could be unregistered and it looks very menacing. And so anyway, I figure out at some point, I'm like, oh, I'm going to call the police because that's the best way to get this back to the person. They can trace it, get it to the person. This sucks. I'm a big bleeding heart. So I always see the sympathy in a situation. I'm like, some poor guy lost his, thing. This is, but at the same time, this could be trouble too. So anyway, finally.
Was there more than just the shotgun in there besides shells?
So and I didn't want to look, I reopened it just to look around in case there was identifying information. I'm still on that. Like, how do I get this back to somebody? But I can't leave. I don't want to leave a firearm and shells just for the next person. And so, anyway, the officer came and said, yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. You're doing the right thing. And he goes, and he just stares and he goes, there's two guns. I didn't even notice in the corner. There's a handgun. Right. And,
oh boy.
And again, I know nothing about guns. To me, it's a big black square. It looks like a Glock to me, like to whatever a dumb guy thinks a Glock looks like. It was a big Glock, right? So, yeah. And so he's, can you stand over there? And he's clearing this and checking the clip, and then he's, getting my name. And I thought that was funny.
It was loaded?
No, he was just making sure it wasn't. Well, he didn't tell me. He just said he was clearing it, and he would like me to stand back. He's like, "You're the good guy here." No, I just didn't want, it's not my gun. I don't want anything to go weird while you're standing. But yeah, it was pretty weird. And what was I going to say? The whole thing was just a really odd scenario. In the end, I felt good about it because I was like, well, if somebody lost it, they're the people who can trace it. And if it's not registered, then I guess I don't know. I don't have opinions. I don't want to start anything, but it was
Steve wants the shotgun, by the way.
Yeah, right. I know. Well, it's like, even as a guy who doesn't know anything about guns, like it was really cool, like there's a little 12-year-old part of your brain where you're like, I want to take this, but I don't want any part of having this in my possession.
Right.
Yeah. You never know what's
attached
to it.
Well, here's the thing about it. You think, because Dale's such a good-natured guy, the first thing he's thinking is that this probably fell out of somebody's truck. And I'm thinking, who has a case full of guns fall out of their vehicle?
Yeah.
Like they're driving away from somewhere and they're like, get it out of here. That's my first thought. I'm like, don't touch any of these things.
Right. And so, yeah, and I didn't touch any of the actual items. I was like, so my prints are on this, obviously, but none of the stuff. But so then he was getting my name, and I was going like, by the way, I'm also thinking whoever realized it's not in the back anymore is going to loop around, and I'm going to be standing here having called the cops, right? And now 50-50, they're super like, thank you so much for doing what you could to get it back to me, or why did you involve the cops? And so I just would like to leave. And then he's getting my name, and I was like, okay, I'd like the person to get it back, but yeah, you can leave my name out of it. And he goes, well, you do realize, you're the good guy here, but I can't just come scoop up a couple weapons from a guy and not ask any questions.
Right.
Like, and then my friend and I were joking, like, that would be a great move, right? If you did something, well, not to make light of this, but if you were going to do something illegal with a gun, all you do, put it back in the case, drop it, call the police.
Right.
Hope he doesn't take your name.
So here's so far, this is my favorite comment of the night. Dale out there saving the world on his bike.
Right. Here's the real
I love the comment that says, Dale, did you ask to keep the case?
Right.
That is the real question. Somebody says, Dale asked, can I have the case?
That's Mary.
Yeah.
Jen and Trev both know that I wanted that case. It's like,
I know.
It's some simple stance. So anyway, that's my.
And then yes, when the cops interrogated you, you should just, what's your name? Travis Larson.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
That's from Sam. Ow.
Scott says bicycle or unicycle.
Ooh, wow. Does Scott know I ride a unicycle?
That's actually an appropriate question for Dale Moon. Those of you who know.
Would have been hilarious to see you riding away with a gun case in one hand on your unicycle.
That would be worth just doing it for that reason.
Right.
Scott, I do ride a unicycle. I have a 20-inch wheel and a 24-inch wheel. And in my one-room apartment, apparently it's worth it for me to store 2 unicycles. They hang well from coat racks. You just invert them and you hang the wheel.
Rather than one bike hanging in that apartment, you have 2 unicycles hanging in that apartment. That way, if a friend comes over that's as skilled as you are, I use the term skilled, then you could both ride together.
Oh, right.
But you're not taking up too much of the apartment.
There's a grocery store right next to my apartment. It's like in the middle of the night, you have the whole place to ride a unicycle.
Vicky says, post picture, it didn't happen. The irony there is Dale was so wishing he had taken a picture of the guns.
I really did, just because I wish I knew because I know plenty of people go, oh yeah, that's so-and-so, this is this. And the thing was, there were people around me and I didn't want people to come up and go, what do you got? What's going on? What'd you find? And then all of a sudden I'm like, back off, and it's weird. and taking pictures of it felt like it would have been drawing attention, but it was an oversight. It was stupid that I didn't.
All right. Anybody got anything else?
Anybody top Dale's found a tactical shotgun and a Glock?
You have the floor, Moon Man.
Oh man.
I can't top finding a gun case in the middle of a road, riding my bike at 11 o'clock. And then calling the cops and having them not investigate you.
Right. I know. Well, I'm sure they're working on it. We got a bunch of complaints about this guy on Volume a few years ago. Maybe he finally snapped.
Right.
All right, I have a joke.
Okay.
What do you call a fake noodle?
What?
An impasta.
Oh, nice.
All our friends in Long Island don't even get the joke.
That was pretty good.
I was trying to come up with one that had a gun, sort of a gun related. Sorry.
No, that was a good tag.
Reaching.
That was a good tag.
An impasta? What do you mean? That's for Joe Narduli.
Yep.
All right, kids.
All right. Good night, everybody.
That was a good night.
I will
thanks for
fix
hanging
this
out.
lighting situation so I'm not like this next time.
Well, not only that,
Hey.
we're going to fix the lighting situation. We're going to fix the microphone situation. Jen may be even on a completely different computer next week. Where'd you get your glasses stuck in your hair? You're like, "Arr."
Nice arm socks.
Thank you.
Is there something about this particular webcast that make your forearms especially cold each week?
Say what? Your forearms are cold? Oh, mine are. No, it's just like
Jen's favorite show is I Love Lucy, by the way.
I don't get that.
It's just the,
Yeah, right. Okay.
the thing, the vibe.
Yeah. What? Oh man. Did we leave anything on the table? Let's see.
God, I hope so.
I think
I gotta go.
Offended all the Springsteen lovers, and let's see.
Yeah, I think we pretty much offended everybody tonight and talked about a bunch of stupid crap that nobody cares about. It was a good
My
night.
phone even started blowing up. I'm sure it's all screw you. Springsteen is the best person alive.
Oh boy.
Springsteen all the way is all the stuff that I saw, and I got to agree with that. I mean,
yeah, I don't expect.
It's all fun. We don't need to incite more division. It's just all, it's all fine.
Can't we?
We love Springsteen and Mellencamp.
Jen, can't we just get along? Can't we just all get along?
All right.
Yeah, no more Who's the Band.
Are we supposed to talk about any
Just be quiet for 1 second. Just before you make noise so you can hear me. Everybody,
yes.
All the TLB support links are in the description of this webcast. Please check it out. We are back here every Saturday at 7 p.m. Pacific until further notice. And I think it's going to be a while. I think we're going to just keep doing this. Everybody seems to, still be hanging. So
yeah, thanks everyone for listening. It's really cool.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry if we're kind of like goofy and stuff sometimes.
Early in this webcast, a lot of people were saying Joe Travers was such a great guest, and somebody said that about a couple other ones, and I started feeling like they're kind of going, you guys should get a guest.
Yeah, you guys kind of suck without guests. Sorry. We're working on it.
I thought we were fantastic.
I didn't prepare this time because I was so caught up with other things. So we'll do better next time.
Nah.
All right.
I bet
Sorry, you guys.
All right. We love everybody.
I'm blinded by the light.
Wrapped up like a douche.
Right.